Another episode on the Jim Ryan Running channel. This is our third episode where we're walking through Jim Ryan's races. He is reflecting on some incredible memories, particularly from the 60s. And today we are in the year 1967, a few years after the last race that we talked about, the AAU Championships, where Jim ran 3:55 and narrowly edged out Peter Snell.
Correct, yeah.
And so, we've been in the series. We started talking about the 64 Olympic trials. Jim came in third to make it to Tokyo, and then, of course, 65. And today we're talking about this race in Bakersfield. And let me just point this out, that above all of it, we always make it a goal, and Jim certainly makes it a goal to honor Christ. And so that's going to flow through all that we talk about today, and even some of your memories as you look back at this race. So any opening thoughts on the race we're going to look at today, Jim?
No, the amazing thing is I've looked at these races with you again, reflect on them. I marvel at the fact that they happened to me and that they're an answer to prayer. So let me reflect on that for one moment. I'd been cut from the church baseball team, the junior high basketball team, and I would go to bed at night, just, I wasn't a Christian, but it was church, and I would say, Dear God, I'd really like to have a plan for my life. I want my life to amount to something, and probably a lot of the listeners have done this too. They're trying to find meaning and purpose. And then I'd say, well, God, I want my life to amount to something, and appreciate if you show up and show me what to do. And then I kind of like at the last minute, if you can say this in bed, raise my hand up and say, God, can you make it in sports someplace? Yeah. And so then when it all begins to unfold, it's so incredible that I find it very hard to believe that it happened to me. There are times I'd almost pinch myself just to see if I was really alive and it was really happening to me. And it was. And I'm so grateful. I had a lot of people. I know the Lord gave me a great gift, and it took a while for me to understand that. And so I'm happy to share some of this gift with our listeners today.
Yeah, and what a special opportunity even for me to hear your story, because it is true. The more we've been talking about it, the more I've been able to see how much God has really been in it, and how much you stepped into that as well and owned what God had given you. It's an incredible story, Jim, I must say.
Well, and it's one of those times. Let me say this, we've actually talked about this off the air a little bit. Becoming a Christian and then marrying my wonderful, wonderful wife, Ann, brought me out of a kind of a shell, so to speak. I was very quiet, introverted, been that way all of my life, and yet it wasn't a happy feeling. But it was one thing that God brought me out of, was an opportunity to be more open and candid and expressing what was happening to me and talking to people.
Yeah. We're actually going to have an opportunity to look at one of your early interviews. And as you just mentioned, before we started filming this video, this is pre-Christ.
It is correct.
And so I'm sure at some point we'll also look at the other interviews post-Christ to see the growth even within you in that. So let's hop into this today. So again, give us a little bit of a backdrop. You're 20 years old. You're going to Kansas University. And so what is happening in 1967 here in the summer?
Well, it's the national championships, national AAU championships. And out of that, they determine who the athletes that will travel overseas representing the U.S. team. So if you make it in the top three, you would compete against the Great Britain team, against the Germans, and against the Italians. And it's a great honor to be on the team and to do that. So, while I was the world record holder, I knew very well that there were many guys right behind me, very close on any given situation, could win. And so I knew I needed to run what I thought would be a very smart race, and it turned out to be an unusual race.
Yeah, as we'll see in just a second, definitely unusual, but a great ending for you. I think one question that I have for you is that at this point you've made the Olympic team, you've gone to Tokyo, you have the world record already. One of the hardest things I think for athletes is some of you watching maybe have had great success, and some of you maybe have not even started on that journey. Either way, sometimes the highs and the lows, you can feel the pressure to either when you're at the mountaintop to continue, or if you're at the low point to kind of stay there. For you, you've had a lot of success up to this point. Did you feel the pressure of more, or did you feel the weight off of your shoulders that you had these things in your back?
I felt the pressure, but it was internal. Not so much, people could say what they wanted to say, the newspapers could anticipate, the writer could say what they wanted to. But for me, the greater pressure and the adaptation of it, or getting used to it, if you will, or using it in a positive way, was internal for me. And so I always try to, be positive at the same time, knowing that, anything can happen in a race. And, this is one of those where I look back on it now and I find it so hard to believe that it was such an easy race. And
Yeah.
for me, it was a very unusual race, as you will see in a moment.
Yeah.
How I will lead from start to finish.
Well, let's hop right into
Okay.
it. This is a little bit of a longer video today. This is live on ABC, so we're going to get some of the announcers involved as well. It's so funny. It's so different now, the way that they open ABC.
And what I like to point out to some of the young people young in sports is that these are the precursors to ESPN 1 and 2 and everything else, because ABC Wide World of Sports was this network that was covering everything. And then Jim Adie, who is now talking to Jim McKay, who was really the initiator of ABC Wide World of Sports.
We talked about it right before this, but everybody seems to be named Jim at this time.
Jim's
does. Talking to Jim, and then Jim wins. It's crazy.
It's a really nice evening in Bakersfield, California. Daytimes are really hot, evenings cool off, the sun's gone. It's what we call a baked clay track. You wet it down, it gets very hard, it's very fast. The only problem is by the time you get to your race, which is the last one, it's not very fast at all. So you're happy to be there, it's a part of it. And I might also mention that we'd had a preliminary the night before. I had to run a 4:04 to qualify for this, so it wasn't like I was totally fresh, but I felt wonderful. I thank God for everything building up to it, and then there was an answer to prayer that I can only look back on now and say, wow, it was a gift from God, because it was amazing. Here we are at the beginning of the race. I'm in lane 2. We can't see it because it's black and white, but those wonderful pink shorts, Kansas University.
Oh, wow.
Right beside me is one of my great competitors there, Jim Grella, and we're set for the race in Bakersfield.
So with the clay track kind of being beat in through the meat, does that change how it feels underneath you?
It does some, and you'll watch as the race develops. By the way, I had a decision to make at the start. One of my thoughts was I didn't want to lead all the way. As soon as the gun went off, I'd hesitate a little bit and then let somebody else go to lead. At the very beginning of the race, for some reason, when the gun went off, I just went to the front. And at this point, it's like, where is everybody? I feel really, really easy. You begin to feel the surface of the track. You'll notice it later in the race more than you do now. But if you watch my feet, at some point, different points, I'm almost stepping on the curb, trying to find good footing, because at this point, after lots of races, it's not the greatest footing. I've seen better, but for this night, it was a good, good field and lots of wonderful milers in here.
And I do think that's something for our viewers to keep in mind is the surface of this track. It makes your performance even that more impressive.
I might point out the young man behind me is Tim Danielson. He was the second high school boy to run under 4 minutes, and I think he's in the 5th or 6th with dark shirts, light jersey. Is Marty LaCoy, who will on this night become the 3rd high school boy to run under 4 minutes. First quarter was around 59, maybe low 59s. It was okay. No indication of what would be coming in the next 3 laps.
So the pack kind of, you get out early, they're a little bit behind, they kind of notice and catch back up to you. Do you have any idea what's going on behind you?
I don't, and I don't like to, and I will later in the race, take a quick peek over my shoulder, because I'm feeling really good, and I'm wondering how they're feeling, and yet they're, close now. They've closed up the gap. They've bunched up against me. I'm still leading, and it's a comfortable feeling. I'm also trying to listen to the splits that are called every 220 yards. And I didn't get the 660, but now I'll get close to the 800 when it comes, and it'll be at 158, I believe. But it was a very comfortable pace. No indication of what would happen over the next half mile.
Sure. Let's watch as this unfolds.
At 158.6, and here's something to note, Noah, is that I, at that point, made a conscious decision to start picking the pace up, because it felt really easy, and I thought, well, if I feel this good, they could be feeling the same thing. I'd rather not come down to an all-out sprint in the last 100 yards. And as it is, it began to open up more and more, to my surprise, and that's why at a certain point, maybe right here, I'll take a quick peek over my shoulder, wondering where they are, there you go, I took a quick look. Wasn't much, and it wasn't intended to be a taunting, moment to say, hey, guys, come on, but rather, where is everyone?
Well, I appreciate how you can very clearly see at the beginning of the third lap, you made a decisive move.
Mm-hmm.
You went right away. It's something that I think younger athletes sometimes can struggle, going slow around somebody. So you got to make that move. So look at you here now. You're really pulling away, and here comes the last quarter.
It's interesting because at this point, I realize that I've got a reasonably good time, not anticipating what would eventually happen.
Sure.
So I'm trying to, as we talk in our camps, I'm trying to relax, see if I can't get a little more speed. The last quarter will be 53.8. The last 200 is around 24. So I'm relaxing. At the same time, I'm gaining more strength and more speed, and beginning to open up the race even more.
That shot is my favorite with everybody coming
in a
around the
minute they'll
corner.
show you the distance. I think Jim Beatty
Wow.
said it was about 50 yards. You make those commitments. You take a risk, and I took the risk, and it was a good risk, and it worked out well. But risks aren't always successful. But don't be afraid, because as a runner, if you're afraid, you're never going to excel. You're never going to see the accomplishments. At this point, I felt really comfortable. I wish I could run a little bit more. We've gotten under 350, but as you'll see in just a moment, 350.9. Both rounded up to 351.1. So.
And viewers, watch how he walks off the track here, and you'll explain something in a second. Looks like you haven't even raced.
That's exactly right. And Noah, you know this. Let me say this. I share this with the campers. In its regular college season in my career, I'd have probably 70 races, relays, and everything in the course of the 6 months. And then towards the end of the season, I get to run just single races, which this is just a single race with the preliminary the night before. So it was a little unusual in that sense, in that I was rested, but you peak towards that. And so once you get into that peak element of time, it's good for me for about 3 to 5 weeks. And I'm in that peak time, and it's feeling great. I went over just now in this race, as you watched, to my friend Jim Grella, who is second. He will be with me as we travel with the U.S. team overseas. So a little footnote here, Noah, is that the next morning, a very noted exercise physiologist, Jack Daniels, saw me after the race. Said, "We're going to do a stress test on you in the morning on the track. You're going to be there." I said, "Okay." So we did, and he did a test. I was 82, high 82 is almost 83, which is very, very high. And it was one of those moments where everything was captured. And now we come to the moment.
I'm excited about this, but before we actually hop into this, I just have a question for you off of that race, because that was the world record that stood for 8 years or
Yes.
so, correct? Heading into this race, you knew you had to qualify. Was there a certain point in this race where you knew you were breaking the world record? Was it the plan coming in, or was it kind of a shocker to you as well?
I gave it some thought, and you'll see that in the interview, that it could be a good time, but I didn't think it'd be a great race in terms of times. But it developed into something that I had not anticipated. Coach Timmons had always taught me that if you arrive at different stages of a race faster than you expect, don't be frightened or intimidated, but push on. Yeah. And that's in essence what happened here. Is I kept pushing. It wasn't difficult; it was easy, and yet, to the glory of God, it was a new world record, one that you just said since about 8 years.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to what God does in our lives as well, in running, and not just in running, where sometimes when you just show up to what you're called to do, God will do miraculous things through the mundane. And for you, this is not a mundane moment, but you've raced so many times, and you showed up, and God ended up working through your abilities there. And what a great story. Let's look at this interview.
May I give that a little background on it?
Please do.
Is that Keith Jackson is going to do the interview for ABC Wide World of Sports, and he called me onto the infield, and he does a little bit of, you'll hear, commentating, and then Jim Beatty and Jim McKay throw some questions down to me through a little earpiece. So I'm not looking at a camera per se, knowing where to look, and I'm also concerned about hearing. At this point in my life, I haven't found hearing aids to help me. I had about a 50% loss of hearing as a young child with the measles. And so if you watch what happens when I put the earpiece in, I push it as far as I can go, hoping I'll hear the words. And so my technique was to listen to intently and at least try and answer part of the question, because if I didn't hear the whole question, I was in trouble. So you'll hear some answers that maybe could have been a little different, but that's the hearing loss issue.
And we talked about it yesterday when we watched this. We got a good laugh out of it, but the camera angle is a little weird because you have no idea where they're shooting the video from. You have an earpiece in your ear, but let's watch this, because I don't know if too many people have actually seen this.
Not always.
Okay, let's see.
The track and field championships in Bakersfield, California, have set a new world record for the mile run. 3 minutes, 51.1 seconds. Jim, congratulations.
Thank you.
When did you decide
That's
that you
it.
would try for a new world record? Well, it wasn't until about 30 minutes before I felt very good before this, but I wasn't sure how I'd feel after I won that. As you reached the halfway point, were you aware of your pace and the time? I thought I was too slow. I thought I'd take the pace out at about 58 quarters. And when I heard the first lap time, 59, I felt that was kind of slow. And when I heard the half mile announced at 158, and I felt there wasn't any chance. I felt there was a good chance for a good mile, but not for a great time. Jim, put on this earpiece so you can talk with Jim Beatty, who, of course, pioneered breaking of the 4-minute mark indoors. I know that he wants to offer his congratulations.
Sure.
Jim Wright, congratulations once again. Thank you. I'm curious
You
about
just gotta get on with it.
the season now. We spoke indoors about your breaking the 350 mile, and it is certainly apparent that you are going to break the 350 mile. So what are your plans the rest of the season? This summer in this country and then possibly in Europe? Well, I have 4 different meets left. I think we meet in July in Los Angeles, the Commonwealth versus the United States, and then 3 meets in Europe. I meet in England, one in Germany, and one in Italy. And I feel that my main competition this summer will be from West German Bodo Tumbler, and of course the Kenyan Kipchoge Keto. Well, Jim, the way Kip Kino runs, there's someone you might be able to depend upon to set some of that tempo. I think so. This is the tactics in his previous races to go out at a very fast tempo. So he and I and Tumbler were to get together and he would have continued this, it might be a very interesting race. Well, Jim, once again, congratulations. Thank you. Jim, do you have any idea what you might shoot for in the Olympics? Have you set that program yet? No, that's quite a ways off. I'd be happy to make the team first and then go from there. Well, I don't think there's much question that everybody in the world admires the effort that you give track, the image you present to it, and we congratulate you deeply for a new world record mile. Yeah. Jim Ryan, 3 minutes.
Well, that is
You know,
1 seconds.
Keith Jackson, who did the interview, was very kind, and I know everyone was probably hoping, and myself as well, to be a little more expressive over this amazing accomplishment.
Yeah.
But I was so tentative because I didn't want to say things that were misleading or whatever. As a child, I'd done a number of those. I'd answered the wrong question because I heard the wrong question, and so even now it hangs over a little bit. But it was an interesting interview. I look back on it now, and it captures the moment, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is funny, listening to this again is he asked you, when did you realize you were going for the world record? And you're like, 30 minutes before. Imagine being at that place where you're like, well, I think I might go for a world record today.
And really, if you listen to what I said there and my thoughts at different points, I was very tentative in wanting to say something like that because going for a new world record or under 350 because I'd be held accountable for that,
Sure.
which is fine. At the same time, I wanted to make sure that I was really ready for that. So when it unfolded to this on this evening, it was like, a dream, a prayer. It was an answer to prayer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments that was transformative in my life.
It's hard to remember, that you were also 20 years old. So it's not like you were in your upper 20s and had a lot of experience with the camera at this point. So
I had to chuckle at one point, is that when Jim Beatty and Jim McKay were doing the narration, one of them said he's 20, he's done almost unbelievable things. And as I look back on it, I go, well, what more do you have to do?
yeah, almost unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I think you crossed into the unbelievable category. One more thing off of this is I think there is a parallel here between learning interviews and then you were a congressman later on. And so how does something like this early on and the various interviews that you did later kind of prepare you for that role that God brought you into?
Well, it prepared me in many different ways in that I had to be comfortable with the material. For example, as a congressman, you need to know the issues, but then make sure you really speak what you want to do as opposed to, hyperbole or maybe half-truths. And so because of the issues of trying to run under 350 and the continuing effort to run faster in world records, I was always very cautious. That was true of my congressional career as well. I didn't want to give people false hope. I wanted to be straightforward and honest And so that was a characteristic that I wanted to carry through. Later on, though, as a congressman, because of hearing systems that I have, the lyric systems I have are fabulous. That allows me to hear the question and I can give an answer in much better fashion than what I was doing on this evening.
Yeah. Well, what an incredible story. It's been a pleasure to be able to walk through these 3 races with you. These are just 3 races of many and a few stories of many others, even outside of running. And I hope we can do this again.
I do too, Noah. Thank you.
This series. Thank you guys for watching these first 3 episodes of the Jim Ryan Running channel. We hope to do more videos in the future. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like the video, to leave a comment, subscribe, and to share with your friends as we continue to look at Jim's legacy and really what God has done in his life, hopefully as an encouragement to you as a coach, as an athlete, as a parent, as a brother, as a sister, whoever it may be. And so we hope you can take something from it. Thanks for the time, Jim.
Noah, thank you.